corner, welcome the legendary Bigfoot, the prototype for all car smashers. In the far corner, First Blood, a mean-stopping monster driven by a crowd favorite, Rob Fuchs. In just a few minutes, these two behemoths will lock horns for the U.S. Hot Rod Association Championships. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Silverdome in Pontiac, Michigan. I'm Brett Kepner, and we'll be bringing you the action from the Silverdome here tonight with some of the biggest names in monster truck racing, including Bigfoot, First Blood, the Equalizer. They are all here for one of the richest and toughest events ever on the U.S. Hot Rod Association National Event Tour. It's gonna be wild.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Chapman at the State Fair Arena in Oklahoma City. You're gonna have ringside seats as America's top mud racers get down and dirty for a chance at all the cash and glory that comes with winning a U.S. Hot Rod Championship.
The best of the business, Larry Jarrett, Jim Weber, three-time world champ Tom Martin, and world record holder Jeff Ecker in the Insanity will do battle, and we'll see the fire-breathing, five-story tall behemoth known as Robosaurus in action. Welcome, everybody, to the Silverdome in Pontiac, Michigan, as we get ready for one of the more unusual monster truck battles on the U.S. Hot Rod Association trail this season so far. It's a circular monster truck course in which two trucks will battle at one time. We're in qualifying right now, and we'll be seeing solo runs with Mike Wine's Jersey Outlaw Ford up first against the clock. He'll be the first man to set the pace in this 8-truck qualified field. Sets of cars. Wine completes the first jump, now has to make a hard left turn, swing it around, and try and keep it straight to hit the second set of machines while completing one full lap as the elapsed time counter ticks away. Wine lands hard, brings it back around, and completes the first lap against the clock. As he crosses the center of the crush car section, the clock stops. The elapsed time for the New Jersey-based Ford, 29.67 seconds. That'll be the mark to beat as we continue qualifying here in the one-shot attempt to fill the field. And here is the crowd favorite and defending champion, Andy Brass out of St. Louis, Missouri, in the state-of-the-art Bigfoot Ford of Bob Chandler. The crowd already knows this is going to be a good one as Brass makes the first turn beautifully. A rather rough landing, but he hits the turn hard. The inside wheel's off the ground, and he turns too hard. But Brass straightens it back out and completes the run. The mark to beat, 29.67 seconds. Brass and Bigfoot runs 20.69 seconds. An incredible job for the defending champion, and the crowd loves it. Looking at the replay of that qualifying run, Brass had an unstable situation with the front end bouncing around, but he still stayed in the throttle and actually overdrove the turn, but straightened it out in time to clock a run that was some 9 seconds quicker than the mark to beat. Andy Brass takes over the pole as the next machine gets ready to pull up to the starting line, and it's one of the hottest young drivers in the sport today. Greg Holbrook, the 19-year-old out of Tennessee in the Equalizer GMC. A picture-perfect flight, and Holbrook manages to take the turn perfectly. Look at this, staggered steering as he goes over the second set of cars. That's sheer guts for the 19-year-old, but now he runs into engine problems as the motor stalls. And Holbrook barely manages to get it back underway, but that's going to hurt him big. Holbrook sends it into the last turn. Hopefully he won't have to use the stagger on the independent front and rear steering. And he'll complete the course with an elapsed time of 29.68 seconds, 1/100th of a second behind Mike Wine for the number 3 qualifying position at this point. That will bring us into this week's Crunch of the Week. In the state of Georgia, just a few seasons ago, Todd Blazier in the far lane came through this incredible crash. but not immediately. Believe it or not, on-site paramedics officially pronounced him dead with no heartbeat, but revived him on the scene, and Todd Blazer still continues racing monster trucks today. That's this week's Crunch of the Week.
This week's Crunch of the Week is brought to you in part by Game Boy from Nintendo. Your power to go.
We're back at the Pontiac Silverdome, continuing with monster truck qualifying here at the U.S. Hobbit Association Monster Truck Challenge Series. A brand new monster machine, so new it's not even painted or lettered yet. Out of St. Louis, Missouri, it's Ray Perkowski and the new Invader with his shot in qualifying against the clock. And problems on the very first turn. Perkowski will get right back in the throttle, though, and try and salvage this run. But he's got major problems. It looks like possibly a broken steering linkage in the front. Something is dramatically wrong. Perkowski, I guess, still does have front steering, but he knows that there is some kind of mechanical malfunction that is keeping this thing from running anywhere near its potential. And Perkowski will take it back to the pits immediately. The elapsed time on the run, 1 minute, 12 seconds flat. That isn't going to help him a bit. Here's Rob Fuchsia, the First Blood Ford. The 1989 Rookie of the Year takes the first turn perfectly and now sets his sight with an unsponsored home-built truck on knocking Bigfoot out of the pole. He brings it around beautifully on the last turn and crosses the finish line. The mark to beat, 20.69 seconds. Fuchs runs 20.43 seconds, and the underdog moves into the #1 spot. Incredible run. On the starting line out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, Jim Thomas and the barely tame Ford. Thomas rather conservative around the first turn as he lines up for the second set of cars. But look at this, a staggered driving style just like the Equalizer, using the independent front and rear steering to straighten the truck out. Even more problems on the second turn as Thomas brings it back around. The elapsed time for Thomas, 27.55 seconds, and that won't help him a bit. When we come back, we'll get a chance to see the continuation of the Pontiac Monster Truck Showdown and the 5-story tall behemoth Robosaurus, plus the nation's quickest and fastest super modified mud racers. Don't go away. Welcome to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, as we get ready for the quickest and fastest indoor motorsports machines in the world, the U.S.HRA Association Super Modified Mud Racers. Battling on an 80-foot mud racing pit with only 80 feet in which to stop or you get disqualified is the national elapsed time record holder, Jeff Acker, in the Insanity supercharged Chevy-powered roadster out of Milwaukee. He'll set the pace for qualifying for a 4-car field. On the brakes hard. Insanity it is. Acker stops within 2 feet of the 80-foot disqualification mark. Full throttle right to the finish line, then hard on the brakes. The elapsed time for the Insanity Roadster, 1.860 seconds. That'll get him the #1 spot. The next machine on the line, the brand new winged Dragonfly of Todd Rovet. The supercharged Chevy-powered Love Truck lines up. The disqualification banner. We're talking about a DQ by less than 6 inches. Robat throws away the quickest run of his life at 1.81 seconds. And look at him in the cockpit. He knew exactly what happened. A disqualification throws him out. Larry Jarrett in the locomotion, two-time winner of this event, may well be the killer. The Perry, Oklahoma-based supercharged Chevy is always tough. He holds the track record at 183. On the brakes again, Jarrett way out of bounds, and the second straight disqualification, as stopping appears to be a bigger problem than acceleration. Watch the wheels up launch. Full power to the finish line, then hard on the brakes. Jarrett throws away a 1.81 second run himself. It would have been another new track record and #1 qualifier, but he's history. That'll bring out Melvin Brown's Blue Max out of the state of Ohio, one of two different machines that he campaigns. This one, a nitrous oxide injected Jeep funny car. Brown hits the binders, and he'll stop in time. No disqualification here. The Blue Max Jeep, 2.15 seconds, and that'll qualify him right now for the 4-car field. On the replay, you can see a decent amount of traction, but apparently Melvin Brown was feathering the throttle at the finish line. That's exactly what he wanted. Arms outstretched. He wanted to stay in bounds. The #2 team in the 1989 World Championship Series, it's the Sturkin brothers from Holland, Michigan, and their supercharged Chevy Love truck called Ground Zero. A small block Chevy engine, one of the more powerful in the sport in this vehicle. And major problems for Sturkin, and you get a good look at just how deep that 80-foot long pit is, 36 inches. And when you lose power, you go down like the Titanic. The finish line timers stop the machine on the run nonetheless at 2.40 seconds. The next machine up, Todd Marion's beautiful Expect No Mercy supercharged Jeep CJ. This one is tough. Marion hard on the brakes, and he'll stop it within 5 feet. The independent from the Midwest, 2.06 seconds for another small block GM-powered machine, and that will give us a bump spot now of 2.40 seconds. That's the number that any other driver will have to eclipse to get into the 4-car field. Marion seems happy with the 2.06 second run, but here's Tony Ferrotti out of Detroit, Michigan. The Let's Boogie supercharged winged street roadster, a Ford from the 1927 model year. He stops it in time. 2,000 horsepower put to perfect use. Ferrotti in the Let's Boogie, 1.89 seconds. That will give him the #2 qualifying spot. An incredible run for the Detroit campaigner. He won't have to worry about engine damage. That's merely steam coming off the hot exhaust headers after that wet mud gets all over him. So right now, it'll put Melvin Brown, #4 in this field of the Blue Max, at 2.15 seconds. But coming up to the starting line, another driver with more than enough power. Past world record holder, many-time national event winner, and #2 in the world last year, Jim Weber from Milwaukee in the American-made supercharged Chevy-powered mud racer. A great run. Can he stop it? He does with no problems. A great pass for Weber, and he knows at full throttle to the finish line. The elapsed time, 1.83 seconds. 1.830 seconds will take the pole and tie Larry Jarrett's existing track elapsed time record. Weber has got to be thrilled with that one. Rick Brickeye, in the meantime, with the just passing through fuel-injected Jeep Funny, is next. Brakes hard. He'll stop in time, but the machine did not appear to have the power up the starting line it needed. The elapsed time, 2.27 seconds. You can see tire spin off the starting line. That was the problem. Brickeye had the power. He just couldn't get it to the starting line mud. And that means that anybody coming up behind these guys is going to have a tough time getting in. But right now, the #1 spot goes to Jim Weber in the American-made at 1.83 seconds. It takes a 2:06.9 just to qualify. Todd Marion's on the bump. That brings up this week's Power Drive. If you think the mud action is wild, you should have seen the man who currently holds the world elapsed time record at 1.683 seconds. Jeff Backer in the Insanity at New York's Nassau Coliseum. He proved that record run was no fluke 2 weeks later by backing it up with this 1.687 second run. He is without a doubt the quickest mud racer in the world.
Power Drive is brought to you by Fruit, the essence of man. Come on, put it on.
We're back in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma for the continuation of qualifying for the U.S. Hoppet Association Super Modified Mud Racers. And coming to the line is the three-time and defending world champion, Tom Martin in the Super Trooper. In the world of super modified mud racing, there are two basic engine combinations in the sport: supercharged engines and nitrous oxide injected engines. Both are attempts to gain as much oxygen input as possible into an internal combustion V8.
The nitrous oxide cars typically get all their power immediately right off the line, and that is a problem sometimes. A blower motor will build off the line and come on strong after it gets out of the gate.
A supercharger works quite simply. In a rubber drive belt that is connected from the crankshaft to the front of the supercharger spins rotors within the casing to force an air and fuel mixture into each of the 8 cylinders. That adds extra oxygen to each fuel and gas charge in the cylinder, and the objective, of course, is to make each charge a hotter, brighter, more powerful fire in the cylinder. Nitrous oxide injection works the same way, but slightly different in that oxygen is injected into the engine under pressure. The supercharger isn't needed in that the oxygen flows freely from a pressurized tank into the intake manifold and/or the cylinders themselves. Each different team has an idea of which system works best, but one thing is for sure in this season of super modified mud racing, more drivers are starting to switch to a supercharged power plant, and more are starting to leave nitrous oxide injection behind.
Well, I can't get the right power band that I want coming out of the starting line. It seems like they make too much horsepower coming out, and I just can't get it to come off the line without spinning the tires, and I think the blowers will help me out.
You may have a hard track or a soft track, a line that goes away. You may want to use the nitrous jets, change the nitrous jets, and decrease or increase the horsepower. Whereas, you know, a blower motor, you have a little more time, it's a little more involved, changing pulleys, so forth, but the nitrous jets are very easily changed.
Actually, we prefer to supercharge it because there's less parts really to go wrong. There's no solenoids to deal with, there's no nitrous bottles, there's no pressure, anything like that to deal with. Basically, what you have is a 3-inch belt that drives a blower, which turns some rotors, which just pushes the fuel and air into the motor.
The nitrous oxide injected car will get all its power right away. A lot of times that's a problem. You have to compensate for that accordingly.
It used to be, you know, whoever had the most power won, but you got to get the power band down and get the car hooked up all the way down the track.
It seems to indicate that the sport itself is changing from just a brute power sport to something that requires a little more intelligence.
That's right. You know, you gotta be able to stage the car down the track and have it hook up all the way down and full hard all the way.
And a supercharger will do it?
I hope so.
Right now, Martin is using nitrous oxide power, and he's ready. Martin shuts the engine down well before the finish line. He is stopped in time, but that effort may have cost him dearly. He had to go 2.06 seconds to qualify. He runs 2.10 seconds. The three-time world champ will not qualify for the shootout field here in Oklahoma City, and he is upset. But keep in mind that earlier interview indicated that Martin may be thinking about switching from nitrous oxide to a supercharged power plant. In the meantime, another one of the nitrous oxide injection campaigners using extra oxygen injected right into that engine with Ford power. It's the rear-engine, short wheelbase, Wild Cherry dragster. And big-time power problems for the nitrous-injected Ford wedge motor. The Bud-sponsored entry with obvious problems right off the starting line will not be a threat. The Wild Cherry machine at 2.61 seconds may have stopped in time, but the elapsed time during the 80-foot run itself was nowhere near enough needed to remain competitive. On the starting line is the machine that took Tom Martin to 3 straight world championships. This is the Mud Patrol 32 Chevrolet, now campaigned by his original sponsor, Paul Schaefer. It's his rookie year of competition, but he's already in the top 5 in the world point standings. Schaefer on the brakes hard. Stops it in time with only 4 feet to go. The Mud Patrol machine Believe it or not, 2.109 seconds will not make the field. It has not been a good event for Tom Martin's double-barreled super-modified bred. That will bring up Iowa's Byron Tinkey. 2 national event wins last year on his way to a top 10 points finish. The Bad Habit supercharged Chevrolet trying to qualify. A little tire spin, now hard on the brakes. Tinkey stops it in time. The elapsed time, 1.842 seconds. And that's one of Byron Tinkey's best ever passes. He made it look effortless, stopping with an easy 6 feet to spare. That will qualify him in the program, bumping out Todd Marion. So now it takes a run of 1.89 seconds to get in. And here's the Ford-powered Thunderbird funny car of the Rancho Shock Absorber team and Mark Watrous. The supercharged Ford hard on the brakes. He stops it within inches. The escape hatch comes open, but believe it or not, the run won't be good enough. 2.03 seconds, about a tenth of a second slower than what the Team Rancho boys needed to get in the field. Chad Miller and the Instant T supercharged roadster out of the state of Ohio moves up next. This car has the power to qualify. In fact, that Chad Miller was forced to get off the throttle or blow the engine. The RPMs were so high. You can hear it on the replay. The motor just zinging to the moon. And then the Instant T at 2.20 seconds will not be a threat. That's surprising for a young man who has picked up quite a few U.S. Hobbit Association national event wins. Larry D'Antoni and the Addicted to Mud Machine, a winner recently at the New Orleans Superdome, ready for his attempt. D'Antoni puts it sideways, almost up on 2 wheels, but gets it stopped in time. The unfortunate part is that while he kept the machine under control in the shutdown area, there is just too much tire spin off the starting line for this machine to break into the 1 second zone. 2.16 seconds won't help the recent Superdome winner. D'Antoni will not qualify. We saw Melvin Brown in the Blue Max Jeep earlier. Here's his other machine, a supercharged rear-engine dragster out of Ohio called Red Heat. Keep in mind, Melvin put both these vehicles in the top 10 in the U.S. Hobbit Association standings last year. Beautiful run by Melvin Brown. Full throttle to the finish line. He stops it within about 6 feet. But again, it's not good enough. 2.10 seconds. You have to go quicker than 1.89 seconds to be a part of the 4-car shootout field. And Melvin Brown will not make it. So the 4 machines in qualifying that will make it into that shootout round. Number 1, the American-made of Jim Weber, 1.83 seconds, followed by a 1.84 by Byron Tinkey. All machines under 1.9 seconds. But coming up, Foster Trucks and Robosaurus. Don't go away. Here at the Pontiac Silverdome, we're ready for the first round of Monster Truck Eliminations, a circular course with 2 vehicles competing on a common finish line. It'll be Jerry Richmond in the Weapon 1 Chevrolet against Jim Thomas in the barely tame Ford. They both move into their respective first turns and now line up for their respective back straights. And with the finish line marked in the middle of the crush cars, you can see it's a dead even battle as they go into the last turn on opposite sides. Heading for the finish line, Thomas runs into problems inches from the finish line, and Richmond will come from behind to get an upset victory. What a tough break for Jim Thomas, as he was dead even with the Chevrolet until this happened. Using the stagger steering approach to the final set of cars, he stalls and gets hung up, and Richmond drives around for the victory. A tough break for the Minnesota team and advancement to the semis for the red Chevrolet from Ohio. This time around, Doug Spanier and the Master of Disaster Chevrolet will get a bye run, as apparently Ray Perkowski, who we saw run into big problems during qualifying with the new Invader Ford, will be unable to make it to the starting line for this round. Spanier will apparently not take it easy. He's going to drive it all out to get used to this unusual circular course. Overdriving it a bit out of the last turn, but he'll straighten it out and obviously proves that he's ready for the semifinal round. But coming up next, the number 2 qualifier and defending champion Andy Brass in the $100,000 Bigfoot Ford leaves the starting line against 19-year-old Greg Holbrook out of Tennessee. The equalizer being driven plenty hard to try and get around the Ford. But look at the advantage Brass already has. The kid is in trouble. Brass will literally drive around him for the victory. And Andy knows he's got this one in hand, as there are apparently even more problems for 19-year-old Greg Holbrook. He will just drive it right back into the pit area. But Bigfoot advances. And now it'll be the number 1 qualifier, First Blood, and Rob Vuesch taking on Mike Wine's Jersey Outlaw Ford in the final pairing of round 1. A possible upset in the making. It looks like the Outlaw may already have the advantage, but no, Vuesch will now make up where Wine has problems on the second turn. Wine will get it back underway, but the First Blood Ford is right behind him. Vuesch knows he's got this one in his pocket and will easily take care of the Jersey Outlaw to advance to the semifinal round. Wine will complete his run nonetheless. Had a great battle going as he locks up the brakes and heads for the pit entrance. So Rob Vuesch endures a fairy tale situation as he now advances to the semifinals. We've already seen the First Blood Ford take the number 1 qualifying spot, and look at Vuesch. He knows he's having a heck of an evening. Coming up, the semifinals, we'll see the Weapon 1 Chevrolet and Andy Brass and Bigfoot, plus the Master of Disaster of Doug Spanier and the killer of this event, Rob Vuesch. Plus the outrageous antics of the 5-story tall terror known as Robosaurus. All that and more, plus super modified mud racing when we return. $50,000 race fans here at the Pontiac Silverdome are anxiously awaiting the semifinal round of monster truck action. The winners of these 2 pairs go to the final round. It's Ford and Chevy. Weapon 1 against First Blood, Rob Vuesch and Jerry Richmond. Again, the winner goes to the championship dash. They leave the starting line on the green light, and they are dead even on the first quarter lap. Richmond bouncing all over the place, tries to keep pace with the Ford, but he runs into problems. And Rob Vuesch may have his first final round appearance of the year in his hand. He does. He drives past the broken Chevrolet. Richmond slams the helmet down as Vuesch drives his way into the final. The crowd ecstatic with this unsponsored home-built truck taking the number 1 qualifying spot, now advancing past 2 competitors to go to the championship finale. Jerry Richmond obviously dejected. He had things under control. It was dead even at this point in the first quarter of a lap. But this rough landing apparently broke something in the drivetrain. He's history. Vuesch again salutes the crowd. Now the majority of them are on his side. We'll have to wait and see who he will battle for this U.S. Hobbit Association Championship. On the line, it's Andy Brass and Bigfoot, the number 2 qualifier, moving up against the Master of Disaster of Doug Spanier. Another Ford and Chevy battle. So far, the Master of Disaster has been nowhere near Bigfoot's performance, but we've already seen that this circular course can make things equal in any respect, just in the treachery of its slippery turns. Waiting for the green light. Bigfoot gets the hole shot, a huge hole shot, in fact. Finally, Spanier starts leaning on the Master of Disaster machine, but I think it's too late. Look at the advantage Brass has, and Spanier has already spun out at the end of his first turn. Andy Brass now literally chasing the Chevrolet around the track, and there is no way that Spanier is going to be able to pull a win out of this one. All Brass has to do is make this turn and bring it across the finish line to come home a winner. A tough break for Spanier. He again had a great battle going until this turn. where he went way, way wide, spun it out, and Andy Brass had the race in the bag. That sets up a spectator's dream final round. Bigfoot, the number 2 qualifier, against the man who has so far dominated this event, the incredible Rob Fusion First Blood. You can bet Andy Brass of the Bigfoot team will check that state-of-the-art machine over thoroughly as we advance to the championship finale. But in the meantime, it's one of the most astounding pieces of machinery ever created, drawing crowds from coast to coast to see one of the most incredible acts in the history of exhibition motorsports. Get ready for the one and only 5-story terror known as Robosaurus. Is simply unbelievable. But there's more incredible action yet to come, including the monster truck battle of the decade and the quickest super modified racers in the land. Stay with us. We're back in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. The 4 quickest drivers out of nearly 2 dozen super modified mud machines have qualified for the Quick 4 Camel Shootout to determine the overall champion. Number 1 qualifier, Jim Weber in the American-made at 1.83 seconds. Number 2, Byron Dinky on a surprising 184 effort in the Bad Habit. Jeff Backer, the world record holder in Insanity at 186 is third. And number 4, Tony Perotti in the Let's Boogie Supercharged Roadster at 1.89 seconds. These 4 drivers now get 1 shot at that super modified mud pit. The elapsed time that is quickest wins the event, and Acker is the first man up as the first man to qualify in the first round. They'll run in the same order. The supercharged Chevrolet from Milwaukee, ready for his shot at the winning number. Shuts the engine down before the finish, and it works because he has room to stop. 80 feet to start, 80 feet to stop, and Acker sets the pace. The Insanity machine, 2.168 seconds. That will now be the mark to beat for the other 3 drivers in this Camel Shootout. And Acker must know that that early shutoff cost him some time.
One of the mud racers making it to the shootout is Tony Perotti and Let's Boogie 2. Tony, what's going to be your secret to success out there?
Well, hopefully getting a good start on the line and being able to stop. The track's pretty good shape tonight. Even though it looks a little muddy, the starting line's getting better.
People have been saying out in the audience, boy, it really looks sloppy out there.
Yeah, it looks that way, but the bottom's hard. If you get down to the bottom, you'll hook good and just hope to be able to stop.
Have you been doing any fine-tuning on this machine to make it run just that much better than your competitors?
Oh, yeah, we've always done that. You got to have an edge someplace, and you got to keep on top of it.
Who's going to be in the winner's circle?
Hopefully we will be tonight, but competition's stiff, and we'll find out in a little while.
We'll be keeping our eyes eyes on Tony Ferroti and Let's Boogie 2.
He has come a long way in just a few years, originally campaigning one of the quicker full-body trucks in this sport. For the 1991 season, switching to this lightweight 1927 Ford Roadster with 2,000 supercharged Chevrolet horsepower. He must go quicker than 2.168 seconds. Full power to the finish line, pulls. He stops it within 3 feet. That's the way it's done. Beautiful power run and a perfect stop. The elapsed time, 2:09. That'll be good enough for the #1 spot. 2.091 seconds for the Detroit racer.
Crew members of American-made have been making some last-minute adjustments to the vehicle as Jim Weber gets ready for the shootout. What's going to be your strategy, Jim?
We're changing some of the things on the motor. We're putting more fuel into it, and we are also putting more timing into it to come out about 20 foot.
How's that track feel to you?
Track feels great.
What kind of strategy are you going to do when you get out there? Are you going to let it rip right off the line? You going to sink in the middle? What?
Right off the line. Right from the get-go.
And where do you think you're going to be finishing?
In the shootout? One
would certainly think so. This guy's been in the winner's circle before, and this machine is equipped with one of the state-of-the-art fuel delivery systems in super modified mud racing. The mark to beat, 2.091 seconds. On the brakes, and again stopping with only 5 feet to spare. Weber may have been a little conservative down near the finish line, but it looks like it worked. The elapsed time, 1.903 seconds. That will take the #1 spot.
Byron Tinky and Bad Habit are one of the ones that's going to be out there in the shootout. Byron, what's going to be your strategy?
Put the pedal to the metal and hope that I can be faster than everybody else.
Now tell me a little bit more than that. What have you done to that machine to make it work better than these other guys?
Actually, we're kind of the underdog out of the ones that are out there, and we just hope my chassis outdoes what their motors will do.
Do you like the track here?
The track's pretty good. The starting line's not real good, and the shutdown line's getting real bad, but we'll be all right.
Jim Weber said just a few minutes ago that he's going to beat you.
He always thinks he's going to beat me, but we'll find out in a few minutes.
Oh, sounds like a threat from Byron Tinky and Bad Habit.
Don't underestimate this guy. He finished in the top 10 in the World Championship points race last year. He can do it. He stops it in time, but now it's just a matter of whether or not he has clocked quicker than 1.903 seconds. The elapsed time for the Bad Habit, 1.94 seconds. And by 400ths of a second, Tinky's Bad Habit takes second. But the win goes to Milwaukee's Jim Weber. An incredible job for the American-made team, pulling out an incredible 1.90 second run. Meanwhile, back in Pontiac, Michigan, we're ready for the Bigfoot versus First Blood Championship battle. The brand new U.S. Harvard Association circle track format of running monster trucks has presented some problems, most notably in the steering department. And Rob, it's got to be tough to steer this machine around such tight turns. How do you manipulate the front-rear steering inside the truck?
Well, the front of the truck steers like a conventional truck with the steering wheel. To steer the rear, which on a course this tight is... Well, it steers a lot faster with the back than it does with the front. It's controlled by a toggle switch mounted on a roll bar just inside the door. And depending on which way you turn the switch, the rear tires turn.
It's just a simple electrical toggle switch, then, that manipulates the steering mechanism in the back of the truck, right?
Yes, it's an electrical switch. It's electric over hydraulic steering in the back.
How much of a turning radius can you create with this truck when it's cranked all the way, both front and rear?
I can spin it on the inside front tire and go back to 180 degrees the way I came from.
It's interesting to note as well that on a course this tight, it's not unusual for a truck to come around one of those turns with the inside tires 4 feet in the air.
Yeah, it can get kind of hairy when that happens. If you go fast, you'll either come up like that or you'll get on the gas and it'll just spin out and, back end will pass the front and it's all over.
What is the trick, if there is any, to this new course? You were one of the first to run on it when it was introduced. Is there anything you can see that'll give you an advantage?
All you can do is go through the corner as fast as you can and try to keep a steady foot on the gas, because if you do hit it fast, you'll either go up on 2 tires or the truck will spin out and then it's all over. You lose too much time.
Fuge is obviously ready to take on the challenge of his life. The best-known monster truck in the sport's history lines up on the left. Fuchs looking eagerly towards the green light as Andy Brass, the defending champion, has got to be a little bit more confident in this situation than his opponent. Both machines move into stage. The crowd obviously cheering for their favorites. Fuchs is ready. 50,000 race fans hold their breath as the final is at hand. Fuchs gets the hole shot. That's what he needed, and Andy Brass is already at a disadvantage. They both take the first turn perfectly, and it's almost dead even at the midway point. Now going into the final turn. It's Andy Brass making up a tremendous amount of distance in the second half, and the Bigfoot Ford comes from behind to win it. You see the hole shot by Fuchs on the replay. Going into the first turn, they were basically dead even, and coming across the halfway mark, Brass had only a half truck advantage. But going into the final, look at Brass take the last turn perfectly, nail the throttle, and make up a tremendous amount of time in the last quarter of that circular battle. Incredible job by both drivers, but once again, the Bigfoot team reigns supreme. This is the run that won it all.
Jim Weber, driver of American-made, takes the win in the mud racing here in Oklahoma City.
Thank you. I'd like to take this time to thank my sponsors, Mike from MPR, who set that motor up to make that final run, Automatic Transmission Design out of Germantown, and TNT Enterprises out of Waukesha, Wisconsin, for building those axles.
Were you 100% confident that American-made was going to take the win?
Yes, I was. By the starting line and the motor being reset.
And what about future races? How many more wins are we going to see for you in 1991?
Hopefully quite a few.
Good luck to you, Jim.
Thank you.
Jim Weber, driver of the American-made vehicle, takes the win in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Meanwhile, back in Pontiac, Michigan, you see the hole shot by Fuchs on the replay. Going into the first turn, they were basically dead even, and coming across the halfway mark, Brass had only a half truck advantage. But going into the final, look at Brass take the last turn perfectly, nail the throttle, and make up a tremendous amount of time in the last quarter of that circular battle. Incredible job by both drivers, but once again, the Bigfoot team reigns supreme. It was just as close as he knew it was going to be. It was about a half a truck at the finish line.
Yeah, it was. It was a good race. Ron's been running real well. You know, he's real good, used to these style tracks and stuff. And we knew when we come down to the end, we was going to push truck a little harder and try to hug the poles a little closer and just hope we didn't slide.
Yeah, both of you made perfect corners. What do you consider the winning advantage to be in Bigfoot's win?
Well, right here, you know, the thing that we thought about as well was just going to have to try to clear the cars and hope the truck landed on the ramp and didn't take a bad bounce or anything. Because if we knew we could keep the truck on the ground, we'd make a good corner and run.
They was flying, and standing right here is Rob Fuchs. Shaking your hand, Rob. It was as close as we thought. It was the closest race of the night.
Yeah, I got a little out of shape down there in the first corner, and you said we made a mistake, he's going to lose it.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, that kind of performance, #1 qualifier, racing that close, the closest race of the night, you can't feel that bad.
Oh, no, I feel really good. Like I said, it's going to be a really good year.
The Camel $250,000 championship is going to be a war.
It sure will.
See you then, guys.
Thank you.
An incredible war, but this was just round one. Bigfoot may have taken this one, but you can bet First Blood will be on his tail for the rest of the season. Well, monster truck racing has been elevated to new heights over the last couple of years, but now with these drivers facing completely different types of race courses almost week in and week out, it takes a versatile driver to come through. Certainly we have seen that at this particular event, but every week things change. Every week it makes for a different story in the world of monster trucks. Thanks for being with us. I'm Rick Gunner. We'll see you next time.